And joining us now, also in the studio, Mississippi's Attorney General, our good friend Lynn Fitch. Good morning, General. Thanks so much for coming in today.
Good morning, Gerard. Great to be here as always.
Well, we really appreciate it. So we wanted to have you in today to focus our discussion somewhat on the scourge of human trafficking, which is just continues to be a big issue in our state, and what your office is seeing with respect to that, and some successes I think you guys have had here recently.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, this is a crime haven happening across our country, but it's happening in our state. And so we have to stand up to that, Gerard. We have to be very impactful. We have to be compassionate and drive to help and rescue these victims. And so just recently we had some operations that we did across our state, one in North Mississippi, one in this area, and then one on the coast, again with partners. You can't do these rescues and these operations without your partners. We had FBI, Sheriff's Office, local police departments, everybody working together.
Yeah.
And as we went in, we found these young women, and we rescued 20 young women in the last few weeks across our state. That is alarming. And we were able to also get, 6 of the perpetrators off the street, these bad actors that are continuing to take these young women primarily and get them in these trafficking rings. And they do it over and over again. So it was very important as we worked together. We went off these tips. We worked very diligently. You have to just really stay at it and find these young girls and then get them back out safely.
How does the Attorney General, the office specifically, how does it coordinate and interact with local and state law enforcement, maybe even federal law enforcement on the human trafficking issue? I had Chief of Police of Pearl, Mississippi, Dean Scott, on the program about a month or so ago. And I got to tell you, General, some of the stuff that he enlightened us with was alarming about the scourge of human trafficking. But how do you guys coordinate with those folks?
So we'll put together, we have a task force. If we get a lot of information on tips, and look, the chief does an amazing job. He's one of the great task force members, and everybody coming together. And we will look at different areas. We'll come together and say, let's work on this particular area on the coast, or this particular here in central Mississippi, because we've gotten enough tips. We know that there are bad actors out there. We know that these young women are primarily in some of these really seedy hotels.
Yeah. We
get a lot of tips about trying to get into those locations. So we have to do a lot of due diligence on the beginning. So as I said, it takes all of us. And again, the federal partners and our state and local working together and really taking the information, the intel, putting it together, and then going in there, as a unified front. Because when you go in for those rescues and everything, Gerard, you have to protect that victim. You have to be looking for that perpetrator. You have to be taking that young woman and helping her get safely. But you also have to build the trust. They have to know that you're coming in there to take care of them, that you're not just another trafficked ring, that these people are coming in, they're just about to traffic you again and again. You have to build up these trusts with these victims. And so when they see that our investigators, our law enforcement, they're all in there for the purpose of helping and assisting these young women, then you see their demeanor change, because, again, it's all about how do we get these victims safely out? How do we get them back into society without any shame or blame? And what do we do together, not only from the law enforcement perspective, but what are we doing as a state? What's our outreach? How do we know this is going? And, just having these conversations is so key, because, many times people say, well, human trafficking, it's not happening in our state. Well, absolutely. You pick any area of our state, unfortunately it is. And so it's upon all of us to be very engaged, to recognize that it's happening, and then to go anytime that we can help these victims.
Yeah, and one of the things that the chief shared, General, that was absolutely shocking to me is sort of dispelled the perceptions. I think most average Mississippians think, well, these are transients. These are people moving through the area, both the traffickers and the victims. And what we learned from the chief is that, no, that's not the case, that most of the time it's their own family members that are engaged in this sort of ridiculous activity. And that was just shocking to me. And you make a great point that I haven't thought about when you're trying to, I guess, bust up these illicit activities. The victims given their scenario and their experience, they don't trust anybody, and you can't really blame them. So you have to establish and build that trust to help them, and that makes total sense because they've been lied to a lot is how they got in that situation, and so they've got to find people they trust. But anyhow, when the chief shared that about this occurring under our nose, this is Mississippians in many cases, and they're abusing their own family in this respect. That just really blew me away. But you made a point I want you to help our audience with, General. How can we be aware, be prepared, and be the solution, as you guys like to say?
Right. Well, we're going to move forward because it is happening out there. As you said, it's happening across our state, and 50% of it is by family members. And a point I want to pivot to as well, many times when these family members are trafficking these young victims, they're doing it and drugs are involved.
Yeah, that's what he said too.
Drugs come right hand in hand with it. And so quick drug use, quick cash, and then these victims many times are given drugs as well to get through their episodes of trafficking. So think about the harm that's happened to these young women. Or young men as well.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine your world is upside down? You trust no one. You're being injected with drugs or having to take drugs to get through these horrific acts of trafficking. And so we have to stop and realize, hey, these young women, they're somebody's daughter, a sister, an aunt, a friend.
Exactly.
And so stop and realize that we have to put a face on this.
Yeah.
It has to become real because we know that it's $150 billion annually illegal business happening across our globe. It's just mind-boggling that that's happening and that we have that going on here. So outreaching, we have to now stand up. We have to make people aware. We have to look at what the signs are. We're getting ready to launch off. Like I said, it's always about partners because you can do nothing if you don't have each other standing shoulder to shoulder going, hey, we recognize this and we're all going in for the rescue and the awareness and the outreach. So we're getting ready to launch off a statewide initiative at the end of the month. It's key because we want to talk about this is happening, really to be aware. And I'll tell you, talking about the tips, one of the greatest way we get tips are through the hotline. And I'd like to give the listening audience the hotline, the number, because it's so key. And here are the really two valuable ways that we get information. So the hotline number is 1-888-373-7888, or the text is to 233-733. Again, if you are aware, you're prepared, you're helping be part of the solution. This many times, these tips that come through, this puts us on the parlay to find these young girls because somebody has seen something. They know that's not right. They've seen them in a store. They see them being guided rather than, affectionately hold their hand. Many times they're not as clean. And you can see they will not make eye contact when they are around other people. They have been taught to have no personal connection. And so when we start looking for all these signs, Gerard, then we know we have to make a difference. Anonymously call in, and then that helps us go in and rescue. But the initiative is key. We're working with a number of different groups, the truckers, convenience, beverages. A lot of different people are going to be coming together to say, look, we're all going to work standing up for this. The ultimate goal is to eradicate this. The Department of Public Safety is a tremendous partner. And let me kind of go from there because those individuals that the law enforcement they're seeing, they're helping, they're on the streets, the highways, they're helping us recognize these victims and then coming in for the rescue as well. But then you have your truck drivers who have the commercial licenses. And so they are of great benefit. They are also the eyes and the ears, and they're helping us and giving us tips. Bus drivers. Think about the individuals that get on these buses. So the Department of Education, teaching our bus drivers, training our truck drivers, and that is very key because think about how much they're out on our roadways and the information and the intel they can give back to us to make a difference.
And they're likely to encounter these victims as well, and maybe in some cases don't even know it. But
That's
what
right.
you guys are doing, is trying to help them spot those red flags that says, yeah, this is probably an issue that needs to be reported. We got a break right here, folks. We'll come right back. We've got Mississippi's Attorney General Lynn Fitch in the studio.